Chas with Chas's Crazy Creations. Welcome to Home Talk. Today we're going to be making a flower pot Uncle Sam. Let's get started. To get started, you're going to need 3 flower pots of the same size. I'm going to be using 10-inch flower pots. Next, you're going to want to remove the labels from each of the flower pots, and then you're also going to want to clean them. And I just use a damp rag for when I do it. And you're just basically what you're doing is you're wiping them down and you're freeing them of all the dust, dirt, and debris before you move on to the next step. Okay, I've got one flower pot turned upside down, and I'm gonna be using Waverly chalk paint in the color Ballet Slipper for this first one. I'm just going for kind of a skin colored tone here, and you'll want to keep in mind whatever paint you do use, you'll want to know where you're going to be placing this flower pot, because some flower pot, if you're gonna be putting it outside, for example, you're going to want to put your flower pot, you're gonna wanna use a different kind of paint. You're gonna wanna use something that can be outside and can withstand the elements. So that is one thing you'll want to have in consideration when you pick your paint for your project. So, make sure it is good for outside if you're gonna use it outside, and if you're gonna use inside, you can use chalk paint and a lot of different options because it won't be being affected by the elements. So I'm pretty much done painting this one at this point. I've made sure to get this upper ledge just a little bit on top. About 2 coats of paint is what will do it, and we're gonna go ahead and let this dry, and we're gonna color the bottom ridge just a different color as soon as this part dries. Now that it's pretty much dry, we're gonna go ahead and turn it over. For this next part, we're gonna paint the top edge, and we're gonna use Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color white for this. We're just gonna go ahead and do this top edge up here all the way around, and it might take 2 coats. And then of course we're gonna do this top edge up here as well. So make sure you get the rim edge as well as this top part up here. Here it is all completed. We're gonna go ahead and let this dry, and we'll work on a different flower pot. For this next flower pot, this is just a flannel backed vinyl tablecloth. And I'm just cutting strips of the vinyl fabric tablecloth to use on the next flower pot. So you're just gonna go ahead and continue cutting strips until you get enough for the next part of this project. And now we're gonna be using some Mod Podge to adhere the vinyl tablecloth to the flower pot. We're gonna start by just putting some Mod Podge on the flower pot first. And go ahead and put a healthy dose on. Mod Podge goes on white and then dries clear. And then after you have that on, you're gonna go ahead and take your fabric strip and just put it on top, adhering it to the Mod Podge. And then you're gonna continue doing this all the way around by, again, putting a healthy dose of Mod Podge on the pot, layering your next strip onto the Mod Podge. And we're gonna do this all the way around the flower pot. Once all the strips are glued on, you can cut off some of the excess down below. You wanna leave a little extra because you wanna have some room to glue the bottom down underneath. So here's what the bottom looks like all trimmed up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna make all of this lay flat so that it will lay flat. And you can either use Mod Podge again, or you could opt to use a hot glue gun and go around. Again, it kind of just mostly depends upon where you're going to be leaving your flower pot as to what the best choice might be for you. So choose that based on what, where you're gonna be setting it and where he's gonna be hanging out. If he's in the elements, you might want a different type of glue. You could even use silicone as another option to as to how to adhere, these bottom little pieces to make them go flat. Once the bottom is done, we're gonna go ahead and flip it over, and we're gonna repeat the process. We need to get all these strips to stay inside here. So we're gonna go ahead and either glue them down, cut them, trim them, whatever you want. Now that the top's done, you can either stop here or we could put another coat of Mod Podge on the top just to make sure that all of these are sealed, which that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. So I've roughly drawn his face on, and I'm gonna start by just adding a little white to what will become his eyes. And I'm just using the same home decor paint from above. So just a rough shape here of his eyes, and I'm gonna go ahead and let that dry. You can go ahead and, you know, make whatever face you want on yours. And then, like I said, go ahead and paint in the whites of the eyes, and then you'll go ahead and let that dry. It might need a couple coats depending upon how thick it goes on the first time. But that's just a rough idea. While that's drying, I'm just gonna go ahead and draw in the rest of his face using a Sharpie or permanent marker. And then once this is all painted and drawn on, you want to let it dry. You can always go and seal it later. So there's his face so far. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, and then I can either draw on the eyebrows or I might try something different. I've added a little hot glue to some pieces of mop that I actually cut. This is just a little piece of mop from a dollar store mop. And I just add a little hot glue gun to it, and I'm making eyebrows. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put some Mod Podge back on the top here, all the way across. And before it dries, I took more of those little pieces of mop, and I'm just gonna go ahead and then set them up here like Uncle Sam's hair. I'm just gonna keep doing this all the way across his head, and then I'll take you to the sides in a second. Now for the rest of his head, I'm gonna go ahead and do Mod Podge, but I'm gonna go down a little bit. I want a little room for maybe a neck, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put some more Mod Podge a little bit longer around. And again, it goes on white but dries clear. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take more longer strands and I'm gonna bring them down. And I can always trim them up, so I'm just going for kind of the look I'm going for first, and then I'll worry about trimming the bottom as I go. So we're gonna continue to do this all the way around his head to give my Uncle Sam some hair. So once I've got it all around him, I'll decide if I wanna trim this up or not, but I need to get a little bit down here for his goatee, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And then the other thing that I just want to mention is you can always put another coat of Mod Podge right on top of there if you were ever worried, just to make sure it's a little more secure. You could also hot glue it, so there's a lot of choices for that part as well. And now we're on to our last flower pot here, and I'm going to go ahead and slide this shirt over the top of this, and I'm going to pull the shirt under and be able to tuck it in like so. And then I'll just straighten it up and get it all situated here. Now I really don't need all this excess shirt, so we're just gonna go ahead and cut a little bit of the extra off. We just want enough to tuck around the edge inside. Like that. Now you have choices of either Mod Podging or hot gluing this inside so that it stays in there. Here are all 3 flower pots, and now it's time to put him together. I'm going to go ahead and use some silicone to adhere my pieces together. So starting with the base first, the tablecloth piece is going to be the base. This is going to be his pants. We're going to go ahead now, and I'm going to go ahead and put silicone all the way around. And you could use whatever adhesive you want. E6000 is another good choice. But find the adhesive you like that's going to hold these together. So now I'm going to take the top piece and set it on top of the pants so that the two pieces are together. And I'm gonna make sure it lines up the way I want it to. Now I'm gonna do the same thing to the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some silicone all around the top edge of this one so that I can put the head on the top. And then I'm gonna go ahead and make sure he lines up nice, and I get him all centered so he's got good contact all the way around. Once he's put together, you're gonna go ahead and let him dry. But you can also add a few embellishments. So I'm gonna go ahead and right here, I'm gonna go ahead and squeeze on a little hot glue, and I'm gonna add a bow tie without trying to get his goatee all messed up. So right here along the waistline, there's a few choices of what you could use. So you could use something like duct tape to create a line here. You can leave it as is. You could use some ribbon. I am going to use my son's old baseball belt that doesn't fit him anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on there for his belt. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about the body a little bit here. You can leave his arms hang. You could probably even add some creative little hands if you want. You could tie them back so that they're still. It's kind of your choice, whichever one you like. There is one more option that I'd like to show you. And if you want Uncle Sam to have maybe more of a blazer look, one thing you could do is get another shirt and then go ahead and glue that shirt on to him to make him look like more like he's got a suit on. So lots of different choices. This is just one option for my Uncle Sam, but let's go ahead and talk about his head too. Now let's talk about his head. So you could take a 4th terracotta pot and put it upside down and paint it to be his head. So that would be one option. You could also easily just buy a hat and use that and set that on him, especially at times when you can't do what I'm gonna do, which is put a plant inside his head. You could also serve snacks inside him for different festivals. He's great for multiple holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. So all summer long, he can sit on your porch. And like I said, so many choices and options for his head. But let's go ahead, put the plant in him, and then take a look at him. Here he is, all completed. Again, I'm Chas with Chas's Crazy Creations. Thanks for watching Home Talk, and we'll see you next time.